morning. Nice to see you. You know, there was in my preparation this week, I came to a revelation that I really appreciate being the co-minister here, but I like it better when it's Mary's turn. Just wanted to get that out there. So, this talk that I'm going to share with you today is about aligning your values with your actions. All month we've shared ideas about, what do you really value and are you aligning with some of your values and taking that into action out into your world? And so this is all about the action in your life experience. And I'm humbled to share some of this because it comes from the Bhagavad Gita, and I've done some study of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm certainly not a scholar of it, but there's pieces of it that really jump out at me, and I participate with them with those wisdoms of the Bhagavad Gita, just as maybe we might with any of the Bible stories that we feel like I can really resonate with that, because I really can understand the metaphor behind what is being shared. And I thank you, Damien, for reading the quotes from Ernest Holmes so powerfully, because I'm going to lead us into that idea of this deep self that is always in action in our experience. And there's another quote from Ernest Holmes: ultimately, we shall see the universe rest on the shoulders of love, that God is love, and that all the errors of man are the result of ignorance of his own true nature. The happy outlook on life is always constructive. The understanding heart is filled with sympathy and helpfulness for all. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, and realizes that all are on the road of experience seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find his home in heaven. And so this idea of heaven in this philosophy is a state of happiness. A state of happiness. It's within. And it revolves all around us, about us, through us. And it's a state of being. So let us remember that, the state of being. And I'm going to keep inviting us into that piece of ourself that is so deeply wise and sure and connected to the One. He also says in the Living the Science of Mind, there is a divine person back of our personality. So here's where I started reflecting on the Bhagavad Gita, because in the story of the Bhagavad Gita, if you're not familiar with it, it's the story of Arjuna on the battlefield, ready to, in the storyline is quite captivating as he's starting to be at war with his own relatives. And this is when he has this recognition of a battle with his families. And so he is at that gateway of making an action and exploring his values. And he questions the One. And this is where I related this divine person back of our personality. So Arjuna's was named Krishna. We all have that deep self within us. You get to name yours as your personal divine coach, so to speak. For Krishna, his person he took care of was Arjuna. And so here for going back to this quote, a divine person back of our personality, a unique manifestation of living spirit. It's never alike in two people. This is proved by the fact that no two persons' thumbprints are alike, no two blades of grass are alike, no two of anything is identical. We should not study to be alike, but rather to develop what we really are. So that's the beauty of this teaching, is the opportunity not to follow a dogma, not to fit into the principles that we speak of from the opportunity to be here before you, to look at the philosophy of so many wise New Thought mystics throughout time, but to really say, does that fill me? Does that stir me? Does that move me? And that's the invitation for you to arrive and to be awake and to be so open in your heart space that you're not so filled with your role in life that you can't let a new way of seeing or being speak into your heart. We should not study to be alike, but rather to develop what we really are. He goes on, at the center of our own being, there is a divine person, a unique incarnation of God, Krishna and Arjuna. There is the source of all real inspiration. Here and here alone, at the center of your being, is the real creative power. The question is whether we are living from this center. Are you? So as I speak these words, ask yourself, am I really there? Are we thinking of ourselves as detached, separate, divided, alone, and inadequate? We all have direct access to the infinite presence in the universal person. There could be no more beautiful thought than that the divine spirit itself, infinite as it is also within us. The prayers that we speak in the form of treatment is a connection to that. God is and I am. So articulated in this process for you to remember who you are, that God is and you are a divine expression of that uniquely in its form. So back into the Bhagavad Gita, in this text, Arjuna recognizes his connection with the source that he names Krishna. And the story unfolds with his connection to spirit as he battles with what action he is supposed to take in the world. It's a story about how many times we're called forward. We hear the still small voice urging us, nudging us into a greater idea, into something that is more than we think our heart could bear. And then we fall out of doing that. We want to shut down. We want to hold back. We want to become quiet. We want to become small. And so this is a story of falling out of what you want to be and what you do. You have a purpose. You have a life's calling. And so think about your story here as I speak of Arjuna. Troward also, one of the teachers of Ernest Holm, he also says this, and Krishna says it as well, never, never fear to be yourself. Your true self includes the inner and the higher. There is a union there which is always in immediate touch with the great divine mind. So there is your comfort. There is your absolute knowing that you're never alone. And as you lean into this source, this wisdom, you are guided. So the entire concept that we speak of today is to align your actions with what you truly, truly, truly value. I had shared with Reverend Mary one of the TED Talks this week by Anne Lamont, and she talks about writing down what you really believe, what you really value. You write it down, look at it. You know, what do you value? Ask yourself. Because we can go along floating in other people's ideas, but we never really anchor ourselves into what we really truly believe. And I speak this when I have the privilege to do classes with all of you. I will speak these principles, but what do you value? What do you take with you from that? And allow yourself to be formed and serve from that idea of yourself. Align your actions and then begin to take responsibility. And what happens to us when we don't act like how we know we're supposed to act? We're so triggered. I was embarrassed this week because I was just finished a yoga class and it was a wonderful time with everyone, and then I got triggered by something that somebody said about the symbol we have on the wall, and I got all like personal with it and like trying to defend it, and I thought, why did I go there? It was just like that. Do you ever have those moments? And it's like, wow, I was just so peaceful a moment ago. Well, you know what? That's a mirror that flips up into your face. See, my dear, what work you have to do. How much do you really value, what you're saying? So I appreciate, I saw some heads nod. Suddenly the butterflies in my stomach started to kind of take their seat, because we do have these triggers, and we do try to, I take responsibility for it. And so then what I do with any of the things that come to me, I'll chew on it, and I'll go take it to Charlie and say, and it has a certain tone to it. And then he shares his wisdom, and it's usually right, and I don't want that yet. And so, well, you just weren't there. And then I go and I think, okay, I've let it go. But no, I haven't. It's in my dream world. So then I'm battling in the dream world, and then I wake up and it's very clear. But it has to come to my own way, my own clearing. You see, I can't, so many times we try to take our medicine from the outside, and we need to really spend a little bit longer in our own self to allow it to distill to the truth that we value and that we know. So again, what happens to us when we don't act like how we know is the way. That is our great teacher. So here Arjuna is on the battlefield. He's caught up in the illusion of what he sees before him. And his words in one of the interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, dejected, remember yourself here, dejected, filled with strange pity, he said, Krishna, I see my kinsmen gathered here wanting war. My limbs sink. My mouth is parched. My body trembles. The hair bristles on my flesh. Sort of like when the person talked about the symbol. My limbs went weak and my mouth got parched and I bristled. And then he goes on to say, the magic bow slips from my hand and my skin burns. I cannot stand still. My mind reels. I think it's a great description of how we feel in those moments of being triggered. I see omens of chaos. Krishna, I see no good in killing my kinsmen in battle. I see no victory of kingship or pleasures. I see no good in this intention that is set before me. What use to us are the kingship, the delights, the desires of life? What is the purpose of life itself? Well, they are your teachers. He was looking at all of these people before him because they were his teachers, his fathers, the sons, the grandfathers. I told you all his family, the brothers of his wives, men of his family. I do not want to kill them. I do not want them to suffer, not for kingship. What joy is there for us? Evil will haunt us if we kill them, though their bows are drawn to kill us. Honor forbids us to kill our cousins. How can we know happiness if we kill our own? So you begin to see the swirl of confusion that we can sometimes put ourselves in. And we're trying to be directed. We're trying to find right answer, right direction, right intuitive flow. And we start to question and we start to doubt. So where do we go? We go to the Lord of our heart. We bow deeply and we ask ourselves to listen. So he finishes saying, I lay down my weapon, and he slumps tormented by grief. How many times have you felt, I can't do this anymore? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just want to lay down and do no more. Well, here where Krishna stands in his power within, this divine self speaks intuitively through Arjuna, self, why this cowardness? To be coward in the face of what is asked of us is shameful and foreign to the ways of heaven, happiness. Don't yield to being disempowered. It's not natural, petty weakness of the heart. Rise to fight. And Arjuna goes on to explore all his questions of right action, his principles. He starts to really sort them out. And so he tries to now sort, well, what do I believe? Here it goes back to Anne Lamont's. What do you believe? And what are yours? What are your true principles? And what are you accountable for within those? What is worse to bear? Are conquering others or are they conquering us? If we cause harm, we suffer as well. The flaw of pity blights my very being, he says, conflicts my sacred duty, confounds my reason. I asked you, tell me, asking for divine guidance, tell me, which is better? I am your pupil, I surrender. Key point. surrendering to that truth. Teach me, show me, surrender me. Let me take down my hardened ways, my confused views. I myself can see nothing. I cannot stop the grief and wither my senses. Even if I won, I shall not fight. And he went silent. And Krishna again gives this counsel. He speaks to the immortality of all souls. And he reminds Arjuna that there is no death. There is just immortality. So this, what Arjuna is facing, is something, in a realm that we don't have to face in our everyday activities of, that kind of a battle. But if we remember the essence of everyone, the immortality of every soul, the goodness in every soul, there was a beautiful passage that I had come across while I was preparing for this, and I can't remember who had said it, but I thought it was so beautifully said, that you name the political figure out there that you might be struggling with, and no matter who that person's name is, and you sit right with them the preciousness of a newborn baby. God loves all equally, no judgment. And so we're being asked to love all unconditionally. Here's our work. And so it speaks to the immortality of all souls. Just as an embodied self enters childhood, youth, and old age, so can it enter another body. Contracting with matter, when we start to let ourselves get small, looking out at the effects of our experience, we have created our experience. In some terminology, it is our karma, but it is done unto us as we have created in thought. It is what we have invested our feelings in, therefore it becomes what is. So if we focus on the effect, and they cause us to contract and feel pain or pleasure even, both, know that those feelings are fleeting. They are not grounded in truth. Science of Mind says when we're caught in the sense world, we're invited to go to the cause of what's behind that. What are your thoughts and your heart's belief and the center of your knowing about that? Go to a place inside of you where the suffering and the joy are equal. There lies that indestructible presence that pervades all of this, and no one can destroy that unity, that one. Look to your own duty, Krishna advises. Look to your own duty, look to your own purpose and your own intentions, I add. Do not tremble before it. It is a battle of sacred duty to find your true intentions and your values. Live by them. If you fail to battle and abandon the sacred duty, you are not in alignment with your true being. No action and non-action is a lost opportunity for you to grow. So if you are triggered in experiences in your life and you take no action, if you're just like, oh well, that was their stuff, and if you don't really soul search that, polish that, work on self-forgiveness, work on forgiveness for the other, the spiritual tool that sometimes is the hardest one to chew, you have no opportunity to really grow. And you'll stay there. And that experience will continue to reinvent itself for you to see it more clearly. Be intent then on action. Not on the fruits of the actions, because remember the word of being willing to sacrifice, to lay down. You want to avoid being attracted to any kind of fruit of your action. You want to also not to get attached to just saying, I'm just not going to do anything here. That's the easy way out. Krishna says, and this is the wise one within you, perform an action firm and disciplined with no attachment, impartial to success or failure. This is the truth of equanimity. A man cannot escape the force of action by abstaining from action. You know what you must do. You will not attain success by renunciation from doing. You must perform action, the necessary actions. Perform the action as a sacrifice or detachment of any action you must do. You will achieve supreme good. Perform your work in this world without selfish attachments and be of even-mindedness, whether you are successful or a failure. Surrender. Surrender all actions unto the One. What does that mean? Surrender all. Whatever you're faced with, one of my favorite prayers of heart, I don't know, but God knows. I don't know what to do, but God knows. Let me be still enough, wise enough, humble enough to deeply listen and courageous enough to follow. Now we're imprinted in our life experience, aren't we all, by moments of inadequacy and failure and feeling less than, by unskillful ways. There was a story in one of the Tao books that I was looking at, and it was about a student that was asked to come forward and solve a problem of mathematics on the chalkboard. And she trembled because she didn't know the answer. And the kids all behind her, I know, you got all those people, I know. And the teacher was relentless, and he said, no, come forward. And she had the courage to follow that and to go forward, and he said, put what you do know on the board. And so she started very slowly to, write out the numbers of what she did know. He goes, now stand back, what do you see? And so very wisely, very lovingly, he coached her and then led her into an aha. That approach versus the other way it could have gone, and where some of us have suffered. The kids are all raising their hand. He still calls on Susie to come forward, and she's trembling inside, and she writes on the board all that she knows, and it's totally wrong, and he ridicules her and tells her to go back to her seat. You can feel the difference of those. Those are two choices that could have happened to this young person. And those forgiveness moments in our heart to look at the unskillful way of that teacher. We've had those experiences of the unskillful ones in our upbringing. Let us forgive them. They know not what they do. That's a wise teacher that said that one time. So forgive them. They know not what they do. Think about those moments in your experience where you were imprinted in feeling devalued and afraid. And recognize you're not that anymore, but it was a moment of teaching for you to find your personal power. So surrender all actions to me and fix your reason on your inner self, your inner knowing, without any hope or being possessive. All of this worry will subside if you align yourself with the One and you fight the battles before you. Men who follow my guidance without question are free in their actions. But those that hesitate and question and fail to follow the guidance or thought of the divine are deluded and lost. So as I close this discussion with you about the Bhagavad Gita, about Arjuna and Krishna, about you, about who your wise one is trying to tell you, are you in a place where you can give up the desires of your mind and be content with the deep self within you, and to listen wisely to your insights? Krishna closes this particular dialogue with Arjuna saying, when suffering does not disturb his mind, when his cravings for pleasures have vanished, when attraction, fear, and anger are gone, he is called a sage whose thought is sure. So, heavy stuff. Heavy stuff, but we're all bright. And we're all here willing to yield our heart into a place of action in a way that is in service to all, with no strings attached. That's the essence of why we speak so continually here about seva, selfless service. To learn how to do your work in the world without any attachments at all, without any praise. Just to know that you are following this desire inside of you to be of service, to be of good. So finally, as you renounce all desires and act without craving any kind of possessiveness or any kind of kudos for yourself, you'll find peace. First, though, this is the wisdom through all of these mystical teachings. First, be united with Spirit. Begin a career within yourself of selfless service. Don't worry about any results. Don't be anxious about results. Just do it for God alone. That's the place where we want to leave today, dwelling in the infinite Spirit. Achieving this, we're freed from delusion and confusion. And this is where we abide in everyday activity. We abide in a place where we are assured a sense of calmness. This is a place where we truly take sacred our values, and we take action in our world, listening to the divine within. So join with me in a prayer of your own heart. Thank you for your quiet listening. I don't give you an opportunity to speak, that's why you're so quiet. But listening with your heart. Listening in a way that invites you into a greater idea of how you can live out your life in heaven, in happiness, in truth, in forgiveness. So we join together, as always, in prayer. And the one within me, the divine within me, continues at center stage, a conduit of the one. This is a blessed moment, a gathering of rich and fruitful minds and hearts. And I give thanks. I begin this prayer in gratitude. In gratitude for all of the ways the people before me, and even myself, have taken action to serve this center, to show up, to really invest in the doing, in the service, to make this a glorious place to be. There is only one. Feel that sense of unity. Feel your heart expand and fill this space. Feel the connection, your connection, our connection to the one. Love. There is only love here. And we breathe that. And we feel that. And it's moving. It's moving through us, inspiring us to take action. So I give thanks for that universal wisdom of truth, for the principles of life that have been carried down through so many wise teachers, from Plato and Socrates, to Sri Aurobindo, to Yogananda, to Ernest Holmes, to Trower, to Emerson, to Eckhart Tolle, to each one here. The teachers are far and wide, and they're all speaking truth. And we lean into that truth, and we find our way as we anchor our own knowing in the principles of truth. And we make a choice here today to allow our actions to align with truth and truth alone. And we allow ourselves to be guided by the one, by the divinity within each one of us that we can only name. and we give thanks. We give thanks for the amazing courage it takes to live a divine life. I release this word knowing that you each carry with you in your heart that which you need for the courage, for the stamina to act in your world as God intends you to do. Thank you, God. Thank all of you. And so it is.